What's up, my friends? I pray you guys are standing strong in your faith. As always, I appreciate the time you guys take to watch videos that I put out on this channel. There's so much out there, right? There's so many things that pique our interest, especially on YouTube. And so by just clicking this one, I appreciate that. And if you've watched some of these videos, but you've never subscribed, man, I would love it if you hit that subscribe button to help us in the algorithm, to back us, and then hit the bell as well, because every time I drop a video, you'll get notices, and so you can watch them and share them, because you guys know the purpose of this channel is to help you to be emboldened in the culture, in the cancel culture that's trying to silence Christians. And this is a place where I want to inform you guys and encourage you guys to stand strong and share this information, quite frankly. Let your friends know about it on your social media platforms. That will mean a great deal to me as well. Now, as you guys know, abortion is probably one of the most contentious arguments in all of the land. And if you've been paying any attention lately in the news, you know that this past December 1st, 2021, the Supreme Court heard arguments in a case called, and this is a long-winded case name, and they typically are, Thomas E. Dobbs, State Health Officer of the Mississippi Department of Health versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. Now, Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, this is a monumental case, my friends, because this is the first time since the Supreme Court set a precedent for abortion rights for women. This is going back, you guys, in Roe v. Wade of 1973. I wasn't even born yet in 1973. This is a long time ago, okay? Not too long, because I'm not that old. But this was a long time ago. But not only that, but also in 1992, there was another case. It was known as the Planned Parenthood versus Casey case. Not Casey Kasem, by the way, but the Casey case. And in that, the High Court ruled in establishing the rights of individual states to regulate abortions, catch this, based on viability, as long as state legislation didn't place, catch this, an undue burden to women who wanted to abort their, again, another intriguing phrase here, nonviable fetus. So in essence, at this point, 1973, abortion on demand. Women have a constitutional right, supposedly according to the 14th Amendment, we'll get to that in a minute, to have an abortion. So through the Supreme Court, by their interpretation of the Constitution, they gave rights over to women, and boom, that's where we're at. And at this point in time, we've had an estimated over 66 million unborn babies who've been aborted in America alone since Roe v. Wade. And now in 1992, what the court did is they still backed, obviously, Roe v. Wade, particularly on the side of Jane Roe, right, who was Norma McCorvey, who has since passed away, and said, look, states, you guys are sovereign states. You guys have a right to pass, legislation on the state level through the House. But as long as you don't put these undue burdens that prohibit or restrict a woman's constitutional right to have an abortion. But here's the catch. It's considered a non-viable fetus. In essence, basically what the court was saying, the high court, was a non-viable fetus is not really human. So as long as it's technically, there's not like a beating heart, there's not other signs of viability that points to it being personhood, being a human being, it's okay. So states can decide when they believe that to be the case. So notice, you guys, the subjectivity here that was going on even in 1992. Now, since the case in 1992, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, several states have actually passed legislation that prohibits abortion after a certain period of gestational age. Now, what's interesting, though, was in 1997, just a few years after that ruling that reaffirmed abortion rights for women, but also limited abortions across the board, state by state. Just a few years after the Supreme Court reaffirmed abortion rights and was talking about, non-viable fetuses and things like that, Faye Waddleton, who was the first African-American woman to be the president of Planned Parenthood, said at this time in an interview in 1997 This is what she said. I think we have deluded ourselves into believing that people don't know that abortion is killing. So any pretense that abortion is not killing is a signal of our ambivalence, a signal that we cannot say, yes, it kills a fetus, end quote. So here you have all this debate about viability. When is it a human being? States decide that. But as long as states pass their laws in this non-viable fetus stage, a woman has a right to have an abortion. You and I know that based on the science of embryology, because a lot has changed, a lot of new science has come out. And even back in 1973, you guys, many of the people, the judges at the time, the justices on the Supreme Court back in the 70s hearing the case in Roe v. Wade, they said, we're not taking issue as to when life begins. This is all about, does a woman have a right, a constitutional right, to abort, to say, I don't want to have a child in my stage of life right now for whatever reason. She should be given that right. That to them was what mattered more than anything. Now, this is why the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization case is so important, you guys. This is why it's a monumental case. Because the lives of millions of unborn babies, catch this, think about this. You have 9 Supreme Court justices, and depending on when they rule, usually it's going to be next year, June of 2022, the lives of millions of unborn babies, you guys, are literally hanging in the balance as to where these judges are going to rule. So we have to be praying, you guys. And so with all this debate over, this monumental case, you're gonna guarantee there's gonna be confusion. There's gonna be false information that's gonna be disseminated regarding Dobbs versus Jackson case, and there is. And I've already talked to several people. Matter of fact, some people are thinking that if the majority of the high court sides with overturning Roe v. Wade, then that will automatically make abortions illegal in the USA. But that's not the case, you guys. That's not the case. When something ends on the federal level, what happens is it gets kicked back to the individual states where they actually belong. And so that's exactly what will happen if the Supreme Court sides with Dobbs in Mississippi when they banned abortions after 15, because that's what the whole thing, they banned abortions after 15 weeks because of viability. Let me just give you guys a quick little quote. This is from Life Site News Online, and they provide a quick little overview about this case. Quote, Dobbs concerns Mississippi's HB 1510 law banning abortions from being committed past 15 weeks for any reason. Notice, other than physical medical emergencies or severe fetal abnormalities. After its enactment in 2019, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals deemed it unconstitutional because of an unbroken line dating back to Roe v. Wade. See the connection? That occurred in 1973, ruling which imposed on all 50 states a right to pre-viability abortion, end quote. And so, by God's grace, this has now gone all the way up to the Supreme Court, because now Mississippi's saying, you're saying our laws that we passed through legislation is unconstitutional. No, it isn't unconstitutional. And thankfully, the high court, right, has taken this case. Now, of course, you have 3 liberal-minded judges, Breyer, Kagan, Sotomayor. In the liberal-minded justice, Stephen Breyer, when hearing some of the opening arguments on December 1st in the case Dobbs versus Jackson, he expressed that if the Supreme Court overturns such a watershed case as Roe, it would, he says, quote, subvert the court's legitimacy, end quote. Got news for you. Again, based on the science of embryology, what we know about viability today, based on the 1970s, and the fact that the 1970s court did not hear scientific facts and said, it doesn't matter when life begins. We're just focusing on a woman's right to have an abortion. How is that legitimate? Justice Breyer? Now, another liberal justice, Sonia Sotomayor, she made false claims regarding abortion. For example, in her cross-examination, she wrongfully stated that the beginning of life is more of a religious view than a scientific one, which is utter nonsense. Pro-abortionists like Sotomayor must make these assertions, and you hear them all the time from them because they know what the science of embryology tells us, that life does begin at conception. This is not just a religious point of view. See, that's what they do, you guys, in their tactics, and you can't fall for them. This is about science. This is about truth. This isn't just about subjectivity, what you think is right. Now, they want to argue the Constitution. Well, let's argue the Constitution. Because the justices like Breyer and Sotomayor and others who align to their type of thinking, they need to understand that our scientific understanding of viability in embryology has drastically increased. Knowledge, that is, since the 1970s. And so when it comes to the constitutional now, the most important facts that we need to know about the Dobbs and Jackson case right now is that the Constitution actually bears no rights for abortion. So the three current liberal judges on the Supreme Court, on the bench right now, Breyer, Sotomayor, and Kagan, they actually, in subtlety, of course, not blatantly, but they do admit that the Constitution doesn't address abortion rights. This is huge, you guys, because they may have gotten away with it in the 70s. They may have gotten away with it in the 90s. But can they get away with it today when you have 6 conservative justices for the most part? I want you guys to listen to what former Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who has recently passed away, this is what she said actually about Roe, the Roe v. Wade case. She says, quote, Roe, I believe, would have been more acceptable as a judicial decision if it had not gone beyond a ruling on the extreme statute before the court. Heavy-handed judicial intervention was difficult to justify and appears to have provoked, not resolved, conflict, end quote. So why would Justice Ginsburg say that? Why would Ruth Bader Ginsburg, one of the most iconic female justices, matter of fact, one of the most iconic justices, period, not to say that I agree with a lot of her decisions, but in some cases I supported some of the things she was trying to fight for, women's rights and men's rights and single parenting and things like that. She said this, you guys, because if you look at it, it's very clear. There is no abortion rights that are found in the text, structure, and the originality of the Constitution. And remember, the Supreme Court's purpose of existence, their sole duty, is to preserve the Constitution by interpreting it correctly in its proper context. And that's in the original rendering and interpretation of it. And this is so fascinating, guys, because this is why a lot of abortion activists are freaking out. Matter of fact, let me show you guys this clip from some of the people who support abortion.
This law is blatantly unconstitutional. It goes against nearly 50 years of precedent, and it prevents people from accessing health care that their patients need and that is constitutionally protected.
At bottom, the state's argument boils down to the notion that the government should get to control people's decisions about whether to continue a pregnancy or whether to end a pregnancy. What Roe stands for is the right of each individual to make that decision. And nothing has changed in the last 50 years for that right to deserve less constitutional protection than the court gave it 50 years ago.
So, see, this is what's interesting is that's the case they make. Now, again, yes, did the court rule in 1973 that a woman has a right to have an abortion? Yes. Is that morally acceptable? No. It's morally reprehensible, to be honest. But that's their argument. And why they're afraid now is because the current justices now, that's what they're evaluating, is looking at what their predecessors have, passed judgment on, what they ruled on in the past. And now with the science before us on viability, science of embryology, and also looking at issues of the Constitution and seeing where a lot of people have come out and said, for example, even Justice Brett Kavanaugh, when he was responding alongside of many legal scholars who will say that Roe was an overreach of the 14th Amendment. So Brett Kavanaugh, when it came time, for him to chime in and speak up, he said that. He said the Constitution, in fact, is silent on the issue of abortion. So he's throwing it back to the solicitor who's represented on the Biden side, who's defending abortion rights, saying, where's the evidence? Because you could go back to Roe, but our job is to look at the Constitution. In truth, Roe in 1973, when the Supreme Court ruled in that manner, they stripped you guys, sovereign states. They stripped us of individual rights. They stripped states from having the ability to decide for themselves on the issue of abortion. And so now, in 2021, going into 2022, the Supreme Court is finally, after all of these years, they have heard arguments that have exposed the unconstitutionality of Roe. And at some point in time, they will come down with a ruling, you guys, that more than likely, okay, there's a strong possibility that they will overturn Roe. So they will overturn abortion rights on a federal level. So you think, okay, well, what do we do till then? Well, here, you guys, in closing, here are 4 simple things you can do. Do this with me. Number 1, let's keep praying together. Let's keep praying for these justices that they would speak the truth, that they would heed the voice of God, that they would uphold to the Constitution. And if there's any fraudulent behavior, if there was any, attempt to try to defraud people of their individual rights or to advance the causes of women having rights to abort babies, we pray that people would stand in the gap for the unborn baby, to be a voice. And so that's number 2. I pray you guys will continue to defend the life of the unborn. And you guys, number 3, keep telling others about the case. Let them know about Dobbs versus Jackson. Share this video. Send it to a friend. Okay? There's so much more information from this video that you can send them elsewhere too, so you guys are informed to know what is actually happening. If you have not listened to the audio of the hearings on December 1st, do that. I went through most of it yesterday, right when it was happening. And number 4, keep speaking truth about abortion. Guys, don't back down. Don't be intimidated with bully tactics out there and people trying to shame you because you're pro-life and you speak up for the unborn. That's the biblical way, you guys. We believe all life is precious. Every human being has intrinsic value. They have worth and dignity. And so we need to support that and back that. So guys, I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video. Leave a comment. If you have any questions, share this video as I encourage you guys to do. Continue to stand strong in your faith as you're defending the life of the unborn. And I guarantee God will reward you and give you the strength that you need to get the job done. Until next time, keep standing strong, my friends.